we all love a good feel-good story. We do. You love the good guy. You love when the good guy wins. Movies like Rocky. But I think what also gets us to our core as well, folks, is the antagonist, the villain, we would say. Who are some of the better villains of all time? Is it Ivan Drago? I mentioned Rocky. Darth Vader? Random one here, maybe because it's my kids been watching. Scar off Lion King, very unlikable guy. Mustafa's brother, it ends up killing him. Joaquin Phoenix's character in The Gladiator, phenomenal villain. I think the Joker with Heath Ledger, one of the best of all time. One of the best all time. I bring all this up to say, guys, who is the biggest villain for every SEC team? Let's just call it back to going to the year 2000, past 25 years, quarter of a century. Who is the biggest villain for every SEC team? I am here to give it to you. I'm also Dave Shumate, one of your lead college football analysts here at the SEC Unfiltered channel. Guys, this segment brought to you by our proud title sponsors, FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet, folks. Let's get right to it. It just had me thinking. It's kind of that dead part of the summer. Again, we got major college baseball stuff. Again, go check out the lines on FanDuel. They do a phenomenal job starting Thursday. But it had me thinking, this is the time of year to kind of sit back, think, do some fun projects. Again, football not far away, but we still have some time to think, brainstorm, doing some of these fun projects. Thought that this would be a good one. So I'm going to bring up the graphic. It's going to have all 16 of them on there, but we're going to go one by one in alphabetical order. Guys, let's get it going. Drum roll for me. Brrr, boom. What are we thinking? If you hadn't already seen it on Twitter, Instagram, if you don't want to comment in this YouTube video, but before you do, go like and subscribe. But tell me how dumb I am. Tell me why there's no way in hell a few of these people, these things, titles, are not the biggest villains for your favorite SEC team over the past 25 years, going back to the year 2000. Let's get started with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Who's been the Alabama Crimson Tide's biggest villain in the past 25 years? Again, I mean, Alabama's had so much success since around 2008, Nick Saban's second year. Hadn't really been a whole lot, but I would say overall, going back a little bit, that cushion at the beginning, the turn of the century, 2000, it's Philip Fulmer. A lot of this has to do. Philip Fulmer won 6 straight games against Alabama. I think he was 11-6 as a head coach. Very close to that. Had a winning record. Again, he played offensive line at Tennessee. He was an assistant at Tennessee. He had a pure hatred for Alabama, too, because that's the third Saturday in October. But this all goes back to the Albert Means stuff. And if you don't know who Albert Means was, one of the top defensive linemen, if not the best players in, I believe, in the 2000 class. I'm pulling up Albert Means' recruiting profile from Rivals right now. But it all came down to Albert Means. I mean, so a big defensive lineman from Tresvant in Memphis, actually. Class of 2000. 6'6", 310. Ended up really doing nothing. So this is wild what this is all about. But Mike Dubose and them were paying Albert Means. He's in the state of Tennessee. Let that sink in. And Philip Fulmer turned him in. I mean, this had something to do with Logan Young, a big businessman, big Alabama alum, big booster for Alabama, who's from the Memphis area. Actually ended up dying in a weird falling down his stairs. I mean, this is a deeper story, folks. I would encourage you to go look into this if you haven't. The OGs know this was so a big deal. I mean, Philip Fulmer didn't even show up to SEC Media Days in Birmingham, in Hoover, the Winfrey Hotel for the 2005 season. And then they went to Tuscaloosa that year, his first time back in Tuscaloosa since he turned Alabama in and was served. I mean, he had to go to court over this. So this is a big deal. Again, a lot of it had to do Philip Fulmer did not like Alabama, and Alabama fans totally ended up disliking him after all this, kind of feeling like he was somewhat of a rat. So, again, Alabama, not a lot of villains here, obviously, with the success in Nick Saban in the football program over the past 17 years. But I would have to go back in the book here. I'm going to go back in the Rolodex. I'm going to say Philip Fulmer. But on to the next one. Arkansas, former all-SEC volleyball player, foundation. I think she worked in the foundation at Arkansas. And then Bobby Petrino was making a special job for her before all the bicycle accident happening, ran into the tree, lied about it, said she wasn't on. He was just all by himself. They were having an affair. I think her husband was in the athletics department. Again, not going into that. But my main point, why this was bad, the Hogs are rolling, folks. The Hogs are just coming off a Sugar Bowl appearance. Or no, a Cotton Bowl appearance. But before that, 2 years before that, with Ryan Mallett in 2010, lost to Ohio State. So back-to-back BCS Bowls. Because the Cotton Bowl was a BCS Bowl back then. Back-to-back. Had a lot of people back. The next year, Tyler Wilson in 2012 and John L. Smith took over. They ended up being terrible. And Arkansas really never bounced back at that. I mean, Brett Bielema had a couple of years between them, but Arkansas was real relevant. Remember that 2011 year, folks? The year before, they were ranked number 3 in the country going into the last week of the regular season when they went to play LSU in Baton Rouge with a chance to go get into the BCS national title game, because their only loss at that point was to number 2 Alabama. Remember, that's how loaded the SEC West was in 2011, folks. LSU was number 1 the last week of the regular season. Alabama was 2, and Arkansas was 3. Arkansas only lost 2 games that year to Alabama and LSU, teams who finished number 1 and 2 in the country. Just unfortunately, they were in their division. Arkansas wins any other division in the country that year. I mean, Bobby P had them rolling. He's back in Fayetteville now. But Jessica derailed and the motorcycle, the tree, whatever you want to call it, derailed the Bobby Petrino tenure in Fayetteville when it was rolling there. It was rolling there for Arkansas standards. Moving to the third team, Auburn. This was I've gone back and forth with. I mean, some people are going to say Brian Harsin. I went Nick Saban. And again, Nick Saban has won some very close games at Jordan Hare against Auburn, but also has lost some, obviously, as we know, too, in 13, 17, and 19. But I would say Nick Saban. I mean, it got Tommy Tuberville, who had success against Alabama, 6 wins in a row before Nick Saban took over. Alabama handed it to him in 08. Tommy Tuberville's last year, he ended up getting fired with a 5-7 record, ran him out of town. I mean, Nick Saban's seen a million different Auburn coaches. Tommy Tuberville, Gene Chizik, Gus Malzahn, Brian Harsin, now Hugh Freeze. I mean, seen 5 of them. But again, nobody really stood out. I mean, this was an easy – you could make the case Nick Saban was one for a ton of teams. For everybody, you could make some kind of case to, except maybe outside of like South Carolina, Texas, and Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, this one, again, there's not a lot of explanation. It kind of speaks for itself. I mean, he turned Alabama, an in-state rival, your biggest rival, into a national dominance, which then spurred a defensive coordinator who is now still at one of your biggest rivals at his alma mater at Georgia. So this whole Alabama empire that Nick Saban started is still a pain in Auburn's tail right now. So it's got to be Nick Saban for Auburn. For Florida, it's got to be Kirby Smart. He lost twice. He's lost twice. He's lost in 2016 and the COVID year in 2020 when Florida won the East with Dan Mullen. Again, kind of speaks for itself. Kirby Smart obviously took Georgia from being good. Mark Richt got fired after back-to-back 10-win seasons, but took them to that elite echelon where they're competing where they are now for a national title year in, year out. This one speaks for itself again. For Florida, I mean, maybe the ADs, maybe the administration just being caught up in the times and still scared of their shadow because of the Urban Meyer era. But I think it's easy to say Kirby Smart. A little bit of the low-hanging fruit there. This one didn't take much effort. Speaking of Georgia here, it's got to be Alabama, right? It's got to be Alabama football. I mean, you've beaten them, twice since 2007? You won in the Matt Stafford and Mikey Henderson game, Nick Saban's first year, and Bryant Denny in overtime. And then you beat them in 2021 in Indianapolis in the national championship game. But you still lost to them that same year. Now, not taking away anything from the national title, but still, Alabama's been a thorn in Georgia's side, really going back to the 2012 SEC championship game, the mudslide, the rain game in 2015, where Alabama kind of got their feet back under them, and it was kind of their springboard game to get back and go win a national title that year after losing to Ole Miss. Bama's just, even last year, beside the second half collapse, Alabama's just had Georgia's number. So it's Alabama for me, for Georgia's biggest villain over the past 25 years. Kentucky, I mean, this is an easy one too. John Calipari. I don't think Kentucky fans would argue this one. This one was just, and you win a national championship in 2012. You go to 4 Final Fours. But really, after the 18-19 season, wasn't a lot of success in NCAA. Either you didn't make the tournament, or you never really made it past. You didn't make it past the first week for 4 or 5 years. Then you go to Arkansas your first year, make the Sweet 16, even though you struggled a lot during the regular season. Starts his own collective, La Familia, wants the money only from his specific people. It ran its course. I mean, he was there starting in 2009 and finished in 24, folks. I mean, again, I always heard from a great administration when I was in college athletics and college ball. After about 10 years, your message grows stale. This was it. it just kind of felt like both parties were pointing the fingers at each other. Easy answer here for me. John Calipari is the answer down in Lexington. For LSU, it's Joe Oliva. Some people may say Nick Saban, but Nick Saban just for a little bit. Remember, he won you a national championship and really turned your program around starting in 2000 when he got there, and obviously won the national championship in 2003. Joe Oliva, the way he handled the Les Miles situation when he was first trying to fire him, heading into the 2015 A&M game, they carry him off the field. He announces in the press conference they're not. Joke of a show. The way he handled the Will Wade situation, didn't really have his back. Will Wade kind of changed that whole program. What Will Wade was doing is now legal. Just the overall handling of the whole athletic situation. The Tom Herman deal, they offered Tom Herman the job on Thursday. He used it for leverage to go get more money from Texas. That was the job he wanted the whole time. Didn't really want to hire Ed Orgeron. Hey, it worked out. You won something in 2019, but still, I don't know, just an interesting one. They hired him from Duke. I think a lot of LSU fans do not really like him, especially when he was taking over a legend in that role. Is the AD, former AD, Skip Berman, former baseball coach, obviously at LSU as well. For Mississippi State, got to go Cam Newton. Remember? I mean, Auburn got Cam Newton, arguably the greatest deal of all time for what they got at him and what quarterbacks are going for, $800,000 to $1 million a year now in NIL, or what these schools are paying them. I mean, they got him now reportedly. Mississippi State offered him what? $180,000? And Auburn's reportedly rumored around offered him $200,000 to get him. Remember, I mean, State thought they were going to get him. OV, the Ole Miss game, had the connection. Remember, he was at Florida where Dan Mullen was the OC. He was comfortable in that system. John Bond, former Mississippi State quarterback, comes out and says he's pretty confident. He knew they offered him $180,000. People put 2 + 2 = 4. Figured he didn't go to Auburn for free, and rumor was they paid him $200,000. I mean, you could never prove that. Thought they were giving his money to his father, Cecil, through the church in Atlanta. Just wild. I mean, imagine Mississippi State gets Cam Newton in 2010. Now, I've heard some people say they think Mississippi State wins the national title too, just because Auburn wasn't a loaded team that year personnel-wise. I mean, really nobody go on outside of Cam, go have a career and not have to go do anything else professionally on that Auburn team. Mississippi State had some of that too, and probably a little bit better in the defense. Well, Nick Fairley for Auburn, but still, what does Mississippi State do? I mean, I think they win 10 games. I don't know about a national title. I'm not there yet, but still, it's got to make you sick to your stomach a little bit because those opportunities don't come around a ton. It's got to be Cam Newton for Mississippi State, though, for me. For Missouri, this is when I asked a bunch of Missouri grads. Because, again, they just came into the league in 2012. So there's not a lot of mortal enemies to make. I mean, Shane Beamer they don't like, but Eli Drinkwitz kind of owns Shane Beamer outside of this past year. I mean, they had their big scuffle with Georgia that first year. Like, the SEC, like, what did Georgia and then they kept writing on the boards what it say about the SEC not being the best conference. Missouri was kind of trolling them going into the week, and Georgia said we were them. Essentially, people will remember that, Missouri and Georgia fans. But everybody kept coming back. It was either Bill Self or Kansas. And again, I worked in football at Kansas under Les Miles. I felt that a little bit, but we never really played them. Missouri, we competed against them in recruiting, but never really played them. So it was always interesting to me. I went Kansas just because I do know that border war is a big deal, especially it was when really, I guess, Mike Anderson and Bill Self are going at it. In basketball, so that's why you kind of got an answer from that perspective. So I'm gonna go the border war there for Missouri, even though it's not an SEC team or SEC connection. For Oklahoma, I think it's got to be Lincoln Riley. I mean, Bob Stoops was your coach for a very long time in this past quarter century, going back to 2000. It's got to be the way Lincoln Riley left you. I mean, a lot of people think he didn't want to compete in the SEC. I know we're an SEC channel, but we're unfiltered, and I'm objective. The Big Ten, it may have backfired on him. The Big Ten may be a little bit more top-heavy than the SEC is now, and now he's in L.A. in that conference, the Big Ten. Interesting thoughts there. It just always felt like Lincoln Riley could never get that defensive hire right. And that felt weird just because the core of the Bob Stoops era with Brent Venables, coincidentally enough, was off that defense. Teddy Lehman and the boys. It's definitely Lincoln Riley. Just the way he left, it was almost like he was – just running away from the inevitable criticism that was just kind of the same thing every year. They were really good on offense. Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, you just name it, folks. Baker Mayfield, they were always good. Just couldn't get that decent of a defense to kind of step up to propel them to go win a national title. I mean, I think they could have done it in 2017 if they could have got by Georgia, because I think they were so hard to prepare for, and Baker had it rolling. Just as I mean, Lincoln leaving here for USC, it's got to be him. Totally sour taste right there. It's Lincoln Riley. Oklahoma fans, I'd love to hear anybody else, but I'm pretty sure we're all going to agree it'll be Lincoln Riley. For Ole Miss, it's the SEC Western Division. It's Atlanta. It's the old Georgia Dome. Remember, the SEC championship game started in 1992, folks. Started in Birmingham until teams started complaining Alabama was playing in it too much. We moved it to Atlanta. Point being, Ole Miss, outside of Texas A&M, who Texas A&M, as we all know, got into the league in 2012. Ole Miss was the only team to never make it to Atlanta and represent the SEC Western Division. They never won it. Mississippi State had won it. Arkansas had won it a couple of times. Everybody, except Ole Miss and Texas A&M. But Ole Miss had been in the league a lot longer. So the SEC Western Division title, they shared it in 2003 with LSU, but LSU went on, won the SEC, won the national title. They stopped Arkansas 4th and 25 in 2015. They win it because then Alabama would not have had that extra game over Ole Miss. And if Alabama and Ole Miss tied in 2015, you know who would have won that tiebreaker? The Ole Miss Rebels, because they beat Alabama that year in Bryant-Denny Stadium to get their back-to-back wins over Nick Saban and Alabama. So the SEC Western Division for the Rebs, I hate to say that. Folks, but it's got to be that one. For South Carolina, asked around a little bit for this. It's got to be Dabo, just the overall success. I can see some people being like, I don't overly hate Dabo or think he's the biggest villain, but just your big in-state rival having as much success, even though it's in a different league, has to eat up at you a little bit. To me, Shane Beamer and Dabo Swinney are kind of the same person. I mean, it's kind of that graphic, the Batman or the Spider-Man graphic where they're pointing at each other. Are you him and I'm you? Like, they're very similar. And for people I know in the building that had worked there, they get along way more than Will Muschamp and Dabo did. So I still think it's Dabo, though. I mean, again, Dabo's an easy guy to like, but I think when your in-state rival, your biggest rival's having that much success, and Shane Beamer's had his fair success against Dabo, 2-2. But I think overall, when you go back in the last 25 years, especially after Tommy Bowden got fired and Dabo got the interim tag removed and became the full-time coach. Next, folks, as you can see over here, sorry, the FanDuel sponsorship covered him. It's Greg Schiano for Tennessee. Remember Clay Travis, Tennessee fans leading the revolt. John Curry, I believe, was the AD, wasn't it? They hired him from, or was it Wake Forest now? John Curry. Yeah. They fired him over this. And this is when Philip Fulmer weaseled his way back in. Remember, they revolted. This was not happening at Tennessee. This made the Mark Stoops and Texas A&M thing look like child's play. They revolted. I mean, it was a social media Clay Travis leading the charge, saying this was not going to happen. We're not hiring Greg Schiano because he was at Penn State when all this Sandusky stuff went out. We remember that? Now, I'll say here, to be fair, you could add Lane Kiffin could be into this, I think. Some people could probably even argue Jeremy Pruitt a little bit, but I think it's either Greg Schiano, Lane Kiffin. I'm not going to argue if you want Lane Kiffin. I can see that one. I just thought Greg Schiano would be a little bit more amusing. But again, I think he's up there, 1A, 1B. I could definitely see Lane Kiffin leaving you after 2009 where he got as much out of any – he developed Jonathan Crompton that year as good as anybody could have. It was a solid team. Just kind of ran into a buzzsaw in Virginia Tech in that Chick-fil-A Bowl that year. But for Texas, it's got to be Bob Stoops, right? Big Game Bob. Back in Big Game Bob's real heyday. I mean, they won five. Oklahoma won 5 straight from 2000 to 2004, and Texas has only won back-to-back games in this series twice since 2005 and 2005 and 6. And then 08-09, Texas had won it when Colt McCoy was really rolling. After that, they've not had back-to-back wins in this series. Maybe they get it this year, would make it back-to-back. But Bob Stoops really had Texas's number there for a bit. I mean, really from the year 2000, after his first year, for about 10 years, kind of dominated the series. I mean, really, especially that front half from 2000 to 2004. That was when they were really making their bread, making their money in Norman, and they were bringing Texas and Mack Brown with it. So I'd go Big Game Bob. I'd go Bob Stoops was who else for Texas would it be? I mean, Texas fans, I'd love to hear you in the comments. I'm trying to think it's Bob Stoops, folks. I mean, I'd love to hear a second opinion, but I think it's Bob Stoops and the success he had at the very early turn of this century. For Texas A&M, I mean, come on, guys. We don't have to go back 25 years. We go back one. It's Jim Schlossnagle. Literally, your coach took you a national title game, 1 game away, and then Bales brings his staff with him to Austin to be with his former boss at TCU, Chris Del Conte. Man, does it get any worse than that? Does it get any worse than that? Guys, that's one of our highest – that reaction to that was one of our highest-rated videos of the 24 season. Just a heads up, folks. A baseball video from that perspective. And I'd put our baseball content up against anybody, even the best college baseball networks. That was big. That doesn't happen. We don't have to go back far, just a year. That one speaks for itself. Schlossnagle going to Austin, bailing on Aggie land, on the station. And Texas having the success they are this year, and Michael Early and Texas A&M kind of fading. It's got to be him. And then finally Vanderbilt. I think it's Tony V, because Tim Corbin, since he became the head coach in Nashville, just took Vanderbilt to heights they hadn't seen. I mean, multiple national titles, had this thing rolling, and then once Vitello kind of got it rolling, he's been a pain in their side. I mean, granted, this past weekend, Tim Corbin and the boys coincidentally went and got the win in Knoxville at Lindsey Nelson, but for the most part, Tony Vitello has been a pain in Tim Corbin and them side right now. With the way Tennessee's coming out of nowhere, NIL, all this kind of benefiting other baseball teams now that Vanderbilt can't do some certain things. Again, we give Tim Corbin credit, one of the greatest SEC baseball coaches of all time. But for Vandy, I mean, I was sitting there, I was like, it's got to be the rise of Tennessee baseball coming out of nowhere with Tony V, especially you take away his first 2 years, and really since then, it's been somewhat of the face of the conference. And again, it's just a compliment towards what Tennessee and Tony Vitello have been able to do, winning the national title last year, but also to where Vanderbilt and Tim Corbin were, still one of the faces of the SEC, the way he had that program rolling, man, with David Price, Pedro Alvarez, obviously, you know, that Kumar Rocker, and lighter than maybe Dansby Swanson, who's who. But I think Tony Vitello, just because that was Vanderbilt's main sport, they could look in this state, as much as they had, as many Vanderbilt fans were really challenging Tennessee fans in the state of Tennessee, were more like, hey, this is our sport. And Tony V and them coming in and win a national title too. So kind of arm in arm there, guys. But I would love to hear your reactions. Where am I right? Where am I wrong? I would love to hear some. I know there's some other ones. I know Lane Kiffin in Tennessee is another one I would not argue. There's a couple other ones as well. The drop fly ball, just a baseball in Omaha, could be for Arkansas as well. Just the drop fly ball to Oregon State 2018, it would have won Arkansas a national title. You have a lot, guys. But, guys, I appreciate you joining us again. I'm one of your head college football analysts here at the SEC Unfiltered channel, Dave Shumate. Guys, remember, this segment brought to you by our buddies over at FANDUEL. Go check them out. A lot of NBA playoff betting and a lot of college baseball betting heading into Hoover next week in the NCAA tournament the weekend after that, guys. But I appreciate you joining us for the biggest villains for all 16 SEC teams since the year 2000, last 25 years, guys. I appreciate you joining us. You have a phenomenal afternoon.